Hello, everybody. Welcome to the stream, guys. Let me just make sure everything's going good. Coming in a little hot today. Hope everybody's having a great day, guys. Today we're talking about game mechanics, and I want to talk about multi-classing, and I also want to talk about trial mechanics. Some of this, the trial mechanic stuff, like I kind of just want to do for my soul, I just kind of want to do because I think it's fun, I think it's interesting. And the multi-classing stuff, I mean, kind of the same thing as well, but I think that'll have a more broad appeal than trial mechanics. It's a little trial mechanics are a little bit niche, even though it's like one of my favorite things to do. I don't have the game up just yet because if I tab out of the game, I have some issues with audio, so I just have a little Nighthawk Gaming here on the background. I also want to say, just take a moment to be a little thankful, guys. I should start off. I just have the most amazing wife. She makes twice as much money as I ever have in a given year. She has a doctorate degree in an advanced STEM field and is a tree hugger and just has worked most of her adult life to make the world a better place. And she's so awesome. She puts up with me and also doesn't put up with me, which is a great thing in any relationship. You got to have a little bit of both. And I've had some friends who tell me that I'm lucky. And what I tell them is thank you, because I appreciate that they recognize that. In my head, I also always think that I know, I am well aware. So, and yeah, I'm just very lucky. It took a long time, but we found each other. I also want to say thank you to all of the channel members, guys. We are up to 27 channel members. I know that a handful of those, quite a few of them, are gifted subs by another channel member, but I just want to say thank you to all the people that have helped support the channel, those who are subbing on Twitch, and just watching videos, guys, sharing the videos and everything else. I know not everybody can be a channel member or what have you, but I appreciate all of the support. Even watching anybody would watch any of my videos, no matter how hard I've worked on them or how much sweat I've worked poured into them or what have you, is still it's pretty awesome. It's kind of a little bit of a wonder to me. So I just want to say thank you to all you guys. Vossball says, fair point, but my wife buys me Pop Tarts. Does your wife do that? Dude, Voss Boss, she makes homemade caramel. Does that I think that fully qualifies to go on little Bluebell homemade vanilla ice cream that I have multiple times a week. um, but yeah, anyways, let's get into game design now. Sorry for those of you watching after the fact. Game design, man. Can we start with trials? Are we all right with starting? Touche. All right, we can call it even. Hey, it's not a competition, man. Not a competition. We can both be incredibly lucky. We can both be incredibly lucky. So I have to pull up on my phone. So pardon me if I look down a little bit because I took some notes and I want to talk. Is trial design? Is this at all interesting to anybody out there? Boss, anybody else who's coming in? Also, welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Nino the Witch. Nino, Nino says yes. Nino, I want to say thank you so much for dropping in and passing on that info the other day in the stream earlier in the week. I also want to say that if you ever want to reach out or talk to me in Discord or let me know anything and pass on any info. Or anything you want to be passed on or anything like that, you clearly have a lot of insight having, worked in the creator program and all that stuff. And I really appreciate your insight and that you would take the time to pass on your info. Vossball says, I find trial design interesting. I enjoy well-designed games. Don't we all, Vossboss? Cool. Well, then we'll jump into it. So I would, if we're talking about this, if this were a class, not that it's a class, but I would say that like this is like a 200 class, right? So we're gonna skip past some of the basics. A couple of things that are of really high note for kind of making a dungeon or a trial 101, and it doesn't have to be this way, but one of the ways that the dungeons and trials are designed in ESO, a couple of things that I think are really well done is that they always do preview mechanics. So what that means is that whenever you go into a dungeon, do you ever notice the first couple of ad packs or what have you tend to be pretty weak? Some of them will only contain one type of unit rather, not just one unit, but one main type of unit, not the little guys, not the really small trash that dies in 2 seconds, but the larger units. And so one of the things is, well, actually, speaking of larger units, things are sized, right? Like Dungeons and Dragons, when they come out with like one of the later editions, probably 3.5 or something, they made all the dragons color coded, so you knew which one of them, what they were and what they did, if they were good or evil, right? And so it's like the chromatic dragons were Good. I don't know. The metallics are good. The chromatic, I guess, is the color ones, maybe, and so those are bad. Daedric says, just throw darts at a board, easy. Daedric. Oh, God. Lady Overall says, do you play PC or Xbox? Assuming is PC. Yeah. Yeah, lady. It is. We are PC, PCNA. Yep. We have people in the Discord from all over, but mostly we just run trials on PC. I hope one day to be able to do stuff on different platforms, but yeah, I can't. I already have a PC and can't really afford to drop the change on something else. Bossball says, quick, stand behind that stone pillar. Hey, there you go. So one of the things is they make the mobs, different sizes. What do you need to taunt as a tank? Well, the bigger, the more important, the harder it hits. Generally, it's a decent rule. It's nice. It's visually very easy for players to understand. But the preview mechanics are when you have a boss, they're there so you can see what the mechanics are. This happens in most content. I almost said something about the new trial. I'll try to avoid speaking about the new trial. I actually want to talk about it in depth, but I realize there's a lot of people that don't want spoilers, so I'm not going to on the live stream. So, they'll have, and you can see what mechanics that particular ad does, or one of the two ads do, right? So you see this in VMall, for example. You go in the first room, you see the Sun Eater drops the negate, right? You see that the Archer summons the cats that can't be taunted. That is a way of showing you what the mechanics are, and then oftentimes they'll come up later on, right? Like those same cats in VMall come on the first boss, where you can't taunt them or anything, but you know that because you had a chance to learn it. So it's one of those things where you want to actually look at the mechanics if you want to learn it when you first go into a trial. There's other things that are like that I would say are like kind of 101. I want to take it one step further, generally speaking. Nino says AoE taunt would be the greatest thing ever in ESO. Yeah, we had it for a little bit, and the people that loved it really loved it, and they took it away because they didn't want it. There is a time, as a game developer, where you might want to say, I know better than the players, and I'm going to do this. ESO has such a bad track record that they should probably never do that, because and there's great companies oftentimes will listen to the players and they'll say, hey, everybody wanted AoE taunt. We want something, and give the people what they want. Is it going to ruin the game? I don't think so. I mean, is it? It's not. I mean, no, we already had it in the game. Did it ruin the game? No, absolutely not. So yeah, it's a little bit frustrating, and I think it would be great for a lot of people to have it. I don't really see what the problem is, honestly, in having an AoE taunt. There could be limitations. It could be only on certain skills. It was on mainly with a set. There's a lot of different things. It was fine. It wasn't broken. And if it's not broken, don't fix it. No fun allowed. It cost a whole 5-piece set. Yeah, a 2 for it to work. Yeah, exactly. It was Tormentor, right? Tormentor set, I believe. And a lot of werewolf tanks, loved it. Scribing could easily give us a taunt. Yeah, AoE taunt. Yeah, there you go. Lots of ways. Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. So let me look at my notes here. So yeah, first off, for trials, one of the things that got me so much about Sanity's Edge, and it just started things off on the wrong foot. And this should really go for most things, is when you first went in to Sanity's Edge. I don't know about you guys, and this is different for new players, right? But for experienced players, people have been playing for a long time, which most people that run trials are. You go into a room and you're like, oh, this is that Telvanni house. Oh, this is the same starting area as Hoth, Halls of Fabrication, as another trial that's old. Why did they use the exact same room to start the trial? And then you enter the trial and you realize, oh, this is literally just a copy-paste of Alinor. Just copy-pasted of Alinor. And that felt to me so bad. And one of the reasons it felt even worse is because, during that patch, that's when we got the new zone. And there's all these new assets. And there was Arcanist, and there was the Apocrypha zone. And I think I was expecting that it was going to be green, and there's going to be dripping black ink, and there was going to be all the new art assets that they had made, and there was none of that. And it was one of the it was like it felt a little like soul crushing at first. Like we just copied and pasted a bunch of other stuff that we had, and then we blocked off some of the streets so that you had to go one direction in Alinor. And it's funny because some of like most of the way that you go is actually like a stealing route that I used to do, so I was incredibly familiar with it, and it just felt soul crushing. So one of the things you really want is just like with anything, make a good first impression, right? And when I say that, it doesn't just have to be the room you load into. It doesn't have to be just the first area you go into, but it should be really quickly when you start an area. And one of the things you don't want to do is reuse the exact same assets that you've used. There's only what 10 trials, maybe? Is there 10 now? Something like that. Why would you reuse assets from one of the other trials? Somebody should have been like, stop, don't do this. So I think a wow factor is critically important. I think that is done, and again, no spoilers, but I think that's done better, much better in the new trial. I will say, because we all know this, because it's public information, I'm not, again, no spoilers, that they then use Cold Harbor. So they're using like base game assets. Don't think that's a good move. I think you could do something like that, but you really got to be careful. What do we got here? Daedric says, add AoE taunt to crown crates. Oh my god, Daedric. Nino says, I've done that trial on Vet, and I couldn't tell you a single mechanic. Nothing in that trial is memorable aside from the last boss. Exactly. Yeah. The Daedric spiders got me like that. Okay. And I only remember the last boss because that fight sucks. Massive PB. Yeah. Daedric says, Sunspire is awesome for first impression. That's a great example. You go through the first set of doors and you're in the court of this massive temple. And if you're not in a pug and you actually go in at the same time, the dragon that you're ultimately going to have to fight at the end of it is hovering in the air and has like dialogue. That's a great example. Thank you, Daedric. That's a great example of like a wow factor. I also think Rockgrove looks really good. I thought that Dreadsail Reef, because you were on a boat, and they released the house boat at the same time, but that was okay, right? Like if you wanted the house that's actually a boat, it was within that same like a couple of months, if nothing else. I think it might have been the same time, and that was cool. It was different, right? Leave a good first impression. Why not? It's not that hard. It doesn't really cost you anything. So it's kind of a no-brainer. You really want a good first impression. And honestly, guys, I might clip this. And so Dear Zos employees, I might clip this and make it its own separate video. So we're going to try to stay largely on task. Okay, what else do we need? We need preview mechanics. We already kind of talked about that. Yeah, you don't want to rock people as soon as they walk through the door. Let them have a chance to see the mechanics. Actually, let's just move on and talk about different mechanics. So, core thing. What is the difference between a solo arena, going around Overland, dungeons, and trials? Not a trick question. What's the biggest thing? I mean, first thing is, well, there's 12 people, right? There's a lot more people. I mean, in a solo arena, it's just you. In a 4-person dungeon, it's 4 people. So, just basic game design here. This is Game Design 101. What should be different when you have more people? Well, we should probably have mechanics that revolve around the fact that there is a different number of people. That would be just, you don't have to do this with every single thing, right? Rules are made to be broken. But that would be a good idea, right? So I think, well, actually, we should put up let's do this, guys. I'm not going to do a poll. Just tell me in chat, what is your favorite trial? Don't put anything else with it right now, just so I can count it up. You can tell me more about it later. Just put, what is your favorite trial? Before I say what mine is, and I'm going to catch up on chat. You can tell me more after, but if you can, just on one line, just tell me your favorite trial. Help me out. You should have used Cold Harbor. Assets. Boss, like they did with a lot of it, but not that much. Like the cool glowy water is one of the cooler parts of Cold Harbor. And honestly though, use some of the new assets. I don't know. I just think that they should have used some of the new assets. I mean, using like, yes, a lot of the miniature or a lot of the models for the models are like the creatures is what I mean by that. I'm trying to not use jargon, guys. They reuse some of those. Nino says another thing Sunspire does well is that the dragon shit talks you with increasing harsher words the further you progress in the trial. His tone turns from wild amusement into full spite and rage. Yeah, well, and several trials actually do that. That's a great point, Nino. Like, I think most of them actually have decent dialogue in that regard. I say that. Do some of the newer ones? I think it's a great thing. I mean, the twins also do. Like they're like, I think they like hurting our dogs a little too much to me. Like they say some stuff like that. Robert Miller says, have you tried FF14? I've heard the trials are pretty complex. Robert, I have not. I can't do the tab targeting, man. I just can't do the tab targeting. Nino says the best rating in MMO, no contest. Wow. Okay. Wow. We got one for Asylum Sanctorum, +2 hard mode. A strong feeling about that. Voss Boss, I'd imagine the level of complexity in the mechanics solo is interactive, but not complex since it's one guy. 4 requires more coordination and is less punishing. 12-man, less coordination, I'd imagine. So I would say that, I mean, so they're Voss just at, you're kind of taking it a step further than I want to go right at this moment. I would just say that for me, the fact that we have 12 people, you need to involve them. You need coordination. And you can soften that because it is 12 people and that could be a problem. There's a lot of ways you could layer onto it. But I think to me, the core thing is that if I'm doing a trial, I mean, that's why I really don't like Sanity's Edge to a large extent, is because a lot of the mechanics are dungeon mechanics. They're mechanics designed for 4 people. And then you're in a trial and you're like, why are we doing this mechanics that are designed for 4 people that you just kind of pigeonholed into something? One of the reasons I think Sunspire for Daedric, okay, Voss says, oh no, I was joking. Cold Harbor is like, okay, all right. I was wondering, Voss, but I was like, all right, we'll just brush over it. Okay, another one for Sunspire. For me, it's Dreadcell Reef, and I also really like Rockgrove. I also really like Sunspire though. I like all of these actually. I would say for me though, Dreadcell Reef is if I'm picking one. Dark Knight says Dreadcell Reef. Lucas says Cloud Rest. I think the mini trials are also quite fun. With most of these things, I think what a lot of us really like, and maybe you decide Dreadcell Reef is not it for you, but I think that one of the things that is so great about Dreadcell Reef is that everybody has a job for the most part. And the cool thing is, some people have easier jobs, or maybe they don't really have to do anything, but in a pug, everybody should know how to grab the dome, right? You need to know how to do that. Maybe you're not doing that much your first time through, but everybody has a job. Deluge on the last boss, Teleria. Everybody has to do Deluge. And if you don't, it can just wipe the group. That is really cool. Now, some people have to go do the bridge. That's harder, right? So you send the more skilled players, those with more experience, and they take care of that stuff. Having different aspects of a trial have varying difficulties. So Sunspire, the last boss, Navintas, doing portals. You send your 3 best DPS down there to take care of things, right? So there are, because in any trial group, they're not homogenous, unless you're at the top end and everybody's, God mode, right? Everybody's epic. Most groups don't. So you send your 3 best people to go do something. Now, do other people have to generally do mechanics? To a large extent, yes. So if you're talking about Sunspire, there are places where no, you just parse, right? Yolnahkrin, you're just parsing. Navintas, if you're upstairs, you're just parsing. I think that detracts from it a bit. I do think there should be variability in what the difficulty is, because you're always going to have that in any given group. So I think for me, a really big thing, something that always sticks with me, is that design a trial that is for 12 people. I know that sounds crazy, but I just think that that's a basic. Dungeon. Design a dungeon that is designed around 4 people. And you can soften the mechanics to where, like, just like in normal Cloud Rest, if you don't jump up, if you're down in Portal, it doesn't kill you. It doesn't one-shot you, right? But it should, I guess, or it almost does. And then on Veteran, it does, right? Which just makes, to me, it just makes all the sense in the world. And I just think that should be one of the core things is like, hey, how many people do we have? we should use that to our advantage. Does it mean every single person has to do every single mechanic? No, and I actually think that would be a bad idea because it doesn't leave room for players that have less skill in any given group, which there will always be, almost always. Robert says, I completely agree with you. By the way, I'm not saying it should be that way. Okay. Nino says, yes, that is what Final Fantasy does. Well, every mechanic is designed to either be raid wide or role specific. This means that everyone is always involved in everything that happens. Okay, that's awesome. I've tried like Final Fantasy like 3 or 4 times, guys, and you're making me think that I need to try it again. But I don't know if I can. Every time I get to the tab targeting, I'm like, I just can't do it. I haven't leveled a full character, by the way. Robert says, yeah, I don't mind the tab targeting. It was a UI bloat with all the skills, extremely active controls. Okay. Aeon, welcome Aeon. I don't like the trend of MMO endgame being visually confusing, a bullet hell. Yeah, that is absolutely a problem. And it is something that what happens, I think, to a large degree, is that things are designed and then they're MMOs. So things gradually, they move forward and you just add stuff in. And all of a sudden it's, it's like the Viva La Dirt League, like Holy Nova, right? You're like, oh my God, I can't see. And I mean, I think probably the worst trial for that right now in ESO is got to be Lucent Citadel, right? Lucent Citadel. And then there's also, hey Sniper, it's good to see you, man. There's also the thing with like Maw of Lorcage was made very dark. And then if you compare that, if you set your brightnesses for Maw of Lorcage and then you go into Lucent Citadel, you're like, oh God. Because it's too, you can't see it in Maw of Lorcage and then it's way too bright and Lucent. Hey, Weremoogle says, is this a stream where we get to watch Night Horror work out for 2 hours straight? Nah, man, I think that's... I don't think that stream's ever going to happen, dude. I don't think I'm turning into a fitness... I did put up the poll. I guess that's what you're referencing. Where I am not joking, but I was like, hey, do you guys want to... So the video I put up, this is off topic. Sorry, ZOS employees, if you're watching this, if I do indeed clip this, but I put up a video today that was about the new trial, and the first 3 comments I got were about working out. So I was like, I've been getting constant comments. So I was like, maybe we should do this and just like address it all in one video or something. Nino says I'm anti-portal mechanics. Okay. Lame cop-out mechanics, IMO. Nino, I think that, I would tend to disagree. I think it's cool to give people the opportunity that are really good. So what I think is really cool about portal mechanics is that it gives variable difficulty. And again, just like Sunspire, you can send the 3 best people and they have something really fun to do, even if they are generally above the skill level of the rest of the group. So that's why I personally really like portal mechanics. Either split the group in 2 groups of 6 or portal everyone. The other thing, splitting the 2 groups into 6. They almost did it with Dreadcell Reef. They almost had it with Dreadcell Reef, and they just couldn't bring it home. They just needed to reduce the difficulty or maybe HP of each side, and then it would have made more sense for the groups to split up regularly. I know you can, and there's an achievement, but most groups don't because it typically doesn't make sense. And I think that would have been really cool. And they still haven't quite got that right either. And I think we all like that idea also, right? Where we split up and split up for only a small part, but just doing a bit. Dark Knight says, I like tank DSR, though I'm just now figuring out the Nightblade more and more. So when I can parse correct, I'll be a DD for trials. Okay. I'm off the training wheels, Oaken Soul. Okay, cast them buffs without it. Okay, great. That's good, man. Yay. Hey, everybody, progress at a level that is good for you. Let me see here. One of the big issues in ESO IMO is that the difficulty spike from normal to vet to vet hard mode is a massive gap. Absolutely, Nino. It's not, yeah. I used to joke that like it's not a step up, it's like a cliff, going from normal. Hey, Sniper, man, I saw you. I said hello, man. It's good to see you. Also, hello, Oliver. I often like you go into normal and like nothing matters, right? You can just kind of do whatever. And then you go into veteran and you just get absolutely rocked. And the same thing happens with hard mode. Hard mode is a little bit better. I don't mind it as much. But yeah, normal to veteran, there's no ramp. It's just absolute cliffs. And then they're like, why don't more people do trials? And it's like, yeah. uh, Franny says the game is not inclusive enough. I have portal phobia personally. Okay. Yeah, yeah. That's fair. Well, that's why I think that it can be good to not have to send everybody, for not everybody to have to do it. Cool. Let me just. Oh man, I'm still behind, guys. I'm trying to catch up. When is the thief event dropping? Golden ratio. I don't know. I hope they made some changes to it. I tried it on PTS. I love the idea. I love the idea. I think that the person who set up the thief event didn't actually hasn't done much thieving, honestly, because I don't think they understand what makes it fun. But I do hope they improve some stuff. I know they improved the drop rate because it was abysmal, but it's a really fun idea. One of the big things they needed to do for the thief event to make it great is make the thief event great again. I guess is to is that they really needed to change and add more areas where you could do like thieving, and it made sense and it was like fun and satisfying. And there's only a handful of areas in all of ESO where that is true. The mounts are all reskins with no variety. Okay, all right. I think it's off topic. Cakeman says, I wish portal mechanics were more interesting. Like so many trials have the exact same go in portal, kill at, and come back. Yeah, Cakeman, I think Daedric would have something to say about that, man, because yeah, he thinks Sunspire, I think, was his like top tier. The portals in Dreadcell Reef are very similar to Sunspire. I personally like them, but yeah, some of the more recent ones, and it's kind of hit and miss. Some of them are kind of lame. Also, once you get across with a portal mechs in Dreadcell Reef, there's also not much. You just keep moving. Getting there is like half the battle. So, excuse me. Little chat about Final Fantasy 14. Volsball says, I kind of wish there were more portals, like instead of one portal group that makes breaks, runs, maybe 2 or 3 that are not done like the Chimera fight in SE. Yeah, I think that's kind of like almost like splitting the group at that point, Voss Boss, and I think that could be cool too. My favorite Portal mech is, as usual, Cloud Rest, but that's because the Portal team is working together with the other team. There's a lot of interaction back and forth. Cake Man, that's a great point, man. You really are still working with the rest of the team. And that's the whole teamwork thing, right? We got 12 people. Let's have them all work together. That's a great point. VOC also did that with the synergies on the other side, but it's still not as interesting. Yeah, it's pretty lame, honestly, all things considered. When you add in that you receive no gil to make up for the massive amount of you dump into gear and material. Okay, we're talking about Final Fantasy 14. Cool. Okay. So yeah, difference in trial, like make it for 12 people. I just think that with everything you do, every mechanic you design, there probably should be a sanity check where you go like, is this fun and involving a lot of people, and in a way that is interesting and fun. And then as the difficulty goes up, it becomes more important that that happens. Another thing I would highly encourage is like, man, you can look at what has been really successful in other trials, right? Like one of the things that is never, I mean, ZOS should do, ask for feedback and put out a questionnaire for like, what is your favorite dungeon mechanic? What is your favorite solo arena mechanic? What is your favorite trial mechanic? Because I guarantee you that they don't know. They probably have some inklings. I bet some of them know some of the favorites, but I also bet that they would be surprised by what mechanics people like and why they like them. Because those two things would tell you so much information, and just you don't even have to think about it. If you ask people what they like about a thing, they will tell you. And that's all they would have to do. So I think that's one of the things that they should absolutely do. And oh, you're good, Where Miggle, man. You do you. I'm just saying when I said off topic, I'm just saying I'm not going to read it, man. That's all. Just trying to me stay on topic. You guys do what you guys do. You. So I think that's one of the things that they should absolutely do. Another thing that has recently come up again, and it has been in previous trials, one-shot mechanics. They should be. So I would say about one-shot mechanics that it should be exactly that. It should be a mechanic, not part of a trash mob's basic attack. Okay. The lowest, weakest mob in any group, even one of the stronger mobs, should tend not to have a one-shot mechanic. Why? It feels bad. And one-shot mechanics, these, I'm sorry guys, I will tell you this, it does feature heavily in the new trial. And it just, yeah, Hoff, yeah, taking aim, yeah, exactly. It should be part of a mechanic. One shots in Cloud Rest whenever you fail Portal, we're all good with it, right? Does anybody go, oh God, this stupid mechanic where it one shots everybody? No. You're like, oh, that sucks. We failed Portal. We didn't do the mechanics, right? But whenever you get killed by taking aim, it doesn't feel good. It's not fun. Whenever you succeed in from avoiding taking aim, does it feel good? Is there an endorphin rush? Are you cheering? No. It's just like, yeah, okay, cool. I avoid getting one shot, right? When you succeed at Portal for the first time, you're like, hell yeah, we did portals, right? These are basic things, and again, I'm not trying to be insulting. These are just basic things that like you got to think about. One shot mechanics. I'm not saying there can't ever be anything, but it should be a mechanic. It should be very involved. It should be something that is clearly telegraphed, and it should be something that you can generally avoid. If there is a situation, to talk about a little bit about DPS checks, and I might be getting a little bit. Actually, I am getting ahead of myself. I'll wait. Let me drink and catch up on chat. Nino says one shot should be reserved for slow cast timed raid wide hits that you have ample time to react to. Exactly. ESO doesn't use hard healing checks enough, in my opinion. Nino also says, I would tend to agree with you, Nino, there as well. And then Daedric says Sunspire Portal still feels like a fight with its own prog. Yeah, most of the other portals are boring and no learning curve once you understand the gimmick. Only other cool one is like On Souls. Okay. Yeah, On Souls you have 3 portals. Each one has a different mechanic each time you go in, and you do have to like learn it and know it. Yeah, that's fair, Daedric. Daedric. I also think that with those, especially with Sunspire, when you go into hard mode, and before when it was on normal, I do think that there should be. Well, I think this goes into the one shot thing, right? Like there has to be a way of teaching the players, and you want to give them a break, and you don't want it. It does kind of suck when you're wiping the group and everybody else is fine, but the portal can't clear. And I do think something to kind of soften that up would be a great idea. Preview mechanics for it, for example, would be a great idea. There's no preview mechanics for the portal mechanics. And that would be a case of kind of they failed their first principles of not previewing those mechanics earlier in the fight. You only have them whenever you're in the portal. As a tank, does everyone rely on you? Yeah, generally speaking, Sniper, if the tank dies, pretty much everybody else dies typically, yeah. Nino says, my issue with the portals is most fights is that when you're not portal team, you usually have nothing to do. And if the portal team dies, it feels like extra bad because it wasn't your fault and you couldn't help it. Yeah. And I think that is the difference between like Cloud Rest portals and Sunspire portals. Like, I think Daedric is like, I love the portal mechanics themselves, but I think how everything goes together could be done better is kind of the vibe I get, or at least that's my take on it, how I feel about it. Volspa says generally one-shot mechanics should be hard punishes for failing specific mechanics. Exactly. A ramping increase to pressure. I feel like it's a lot better of a punish Zosh should use more of. Yeah. And then Cakeman says, Cloud Rest lets you recover from portals on the other fights. Yeah, that's a great, kind of Cakeman. Cakeman, though, that was a soft wipe mechanic until recently. Now the DPS is so high you can just kill those ads. But before that was a wipe mechanic, it was just a soft wipe mechanic. So that's just changed over time. Hey, B, it's good to see you. B says only Cloud Rest wipes you on normal for failing Portal. Yeah. Nino the Witch says a really fun use of DPS checks. IMO was in Lost Ark. Once the cast started, you had X amount of time to do enough damage to stagger the cast of the boss. Nino, that is an interesting thing to point out there. One of the things with DPS checks is that DPS checks should there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And with everything I have to say today too, I might say something like, hey, this is a good way to do it, or this is like the gold standard maybe, or I'll imply that. There's always different ways, and you can always, and to think that there's not is simply a lack of imagination. So please don't think with anything I said that I'm trying to suggest it's the only way to do something. I'm suggesting good ways, the ways that make sense, ways that a lot of this stuff is ESO specific with how it works in with ESO. And if you changed a lot of the core things with ESO, a lot of other things would change. But one of the things with DPS checks is I personally feel like a lot of them, if you have various mechanics going on, the DPS checks should be in such a place that if everything is going okay, you pass the DPS check. And then in higher difficulties, you up the DPS check. Now, what can happen is if multiple people die and then people have to stop and res them, your DPS goes way down. Much worse than if someone's just not parsing, 10k as high as as other people are, right? It's much worse on your DPS. So if you have mechanics that then cause you to fail the DPS check, CloudRest does this, for example, that also feels really good. And then it's like, okay, guys, we just need to clean everything up and then we'll pass the DPS check. And I think that's one way that works really well and is really good to do. What else do we got here? I've got quite a few things. Yeah, I mentioned that. Oh, yeah, another thing that is that's really well telegraphed is the CloudRest, right? Jumping up on the portals, and if you're in portal, jumping up, that is really well telegraphed. You know when it's coming each time, and it does one-shot you, but you have plenty of time to avoid the mechanic, and it scales in difficulty. It starts out, there's a portal in 4 locations. The higher the difficulty, there only becomes, well, there's only one portal to jump up. I think that's really cool. It's a great feature, and it's a good way of like scaling and everything. Again, like looking back at other things. The one-shot from the archers, guys, in the new trial is, and again, I don't think I'm giving anything away here. Do we all agree it feels bad? Are we all on the same page? Is there anybody who's like, man, I think taking aim is a great feature? Is there any taking aim defenders out there? Let me see here. Vossbus says, I think I left a comment similar to this earlier today, but the one fight in Depths of Malatar where failing mechanics tanks your stats, I feel like is a better group punishment compared to one-shots for the whole group. Vossbus, I think that's a great point, man. And I think that applies more generally, that there are a lot of fights. I think that instead of one-shots, it can be very difficult. You can take a lot of damage, other things involved. I mean, if we want to talk about a mechanic from that some of you will recognize, but if you have like a ramping dot, okay? But what if it's a ramping dot that you don't even notice at first? And then quickly, you're almost dead. And then shortly after you're almost dead, you're absolutely dead within a couple of seconds. And there's no telegraph for it. Is that a fun mechanic? I don't think that's a very fun mechanic. And also, the other thing is that I'm a really good player and I know how to do my job really well. Maybe I'm a tank and there's some ramping damage thing or whatever. Well, if you're a really good player and you can survive through a mechanic for a little bit longer because it's not a hard wipe, it's a soft wipe, or it's a ramping until the hard wipe, then that allows you, it gives me an opportunity as maybe a more skilled player to allow the group a little bit more room because I can stay alive for a little bit longer. And that feels good. It also allows me as a newer player to see where I could stretch and learn and get better so that I could avoid this mechanic. But if it's binary, if it's just, and some things are essentially binary. Some of these, mechanics that we're talking about here, where it ramps up so fast that you die and then you can't do anything. That feels really bad. A good example of how this is done well is the Reef Guardian, right? You take electrical shocks, you build up stacks. If you know what you're doing, keep track of your stacks, you're okay. If you're a tank and you know what you're doing, you can take more of those stacks and be okay. But eventually it will one-shot you. That's a lot better mechanic than if somebody else somewhere else doesn't do a thing, then I just die and there's nothing I can do about it. That feels pretty bad. And I think universally, I think that probably feels pretty bad to most people. I don't know if anybody's going to defend that kind of mechanic. And it's also wild to me to see it in a trial, to see it in the game and be like, did no one sanity check this? Because that's all it needs is a sanity check. Cakeman says, I'm just saying it teaches you portal because portals, so many chats, guys, because portals get harder and harder as you up the hard mode. Okay. Nino says, yes, CloudRest does DPS checks well. Cool. We agree on that. CloudRest +3 as a fight flows so well. The fight is a masterpiece of ESO mechanics, in my opinion. I don't disagree. I think it's great. I think CloudRest is one of my favorite trials as well. Now, the Archer one-shots have been bad since it came out in HRC. Honestly, Nino, I didn't even know they were in HRC because everything dies so quickly. That's kind of funny. I don't remember it, but that's hilarious. Cakeman says VOC does kind of feel like a million basic mechanics thrown at you and not super cool large mechs. Yeah. Uh, Sniper says, Knight, do you have any 1-bar PvP builds for Templar I can use? Not for PvP, Sniper. I'm sorry, man. I don't typically do PvP builds. Sorry about that. But I bet if you asked in the help channels, I bet someone could hook you up, my friend. Cakeman says, I was literally just thinking of Depths of Malatar. You can pop a barrier to live, only killing 2 spirits, and you can live by dodging all the walls and execute. You can play around failing DPS checks. Yeah, exactly. Being able to play around it, and if you're really good, maybe surviving longer or maybe surviving period. It feels like a good mechanic. It rewards you for being good at the game. And that just feels rewarding in general. Like the Beside Dot on release. Yeah. For Beside Dot on release, guys, no one could survive through it. And the developers refused to change it, and they felt like that people were just saying it was impossible to survive through. And it was. That was. I do like the idea of like, hey, let's see if the players can figure it out. But like once they gotten feedback that it wasn't working, the only way to do it was to vamp mist. They eventually listened. Nino says a big reason I hate a lot of the newer trials that they're designed with add-ons and coordinate groups in mind, and then you try and pug something and it's hell to get through. Nino, I would say one of my biggest issues with VOC right now is that it does not telegraph one-shot mechanics, and it's just like, how the hell, like, if people with add-ons, no problem, not a big deal. And it just feels bad. I don't want to play a game reading text that's popping up on my screen. I want to play the game by watching what's going on, knowing what's going on, and then reacting. And it feels pretty bad. Cakeman says it would be really cool to have more portal mechanics that you can't 100%, where the better you perform in portal, the more you are rewarded. This way you can learn and improve without being binary. Hey, that's really cool. That's a great idea, Cakeman. And then if you did it on veteran, or even on normal, and you got better at it, you're like, okay, once you can do it on normal, then you move up to hard mode, or to veteran. I'm sorry, once you do it on normal. That's a great idea. Honestly, all the trials should be designed by like that, and not have the huge step up in difficulty. Nina says none of these mechanics are easily understandable or noticeable on the first couple of runs. There's so much random spawning and bloat, you cannot tell what is happening. I would tend to agree. Franny says, I don't agree. If it's cleansable, it makes work the healers a bit more, at least. Franny, can you clarify what you're disagreeing with? Because I also agree that that's actually one of the issues, is that we have cleanses, but then none of the mechanics are cleansable, or hardly any of them, and it feels bad. I think there should be more cleanse mechanics for healers, because I think they work really well, and I think it's a fun way of engaging with the healers and giving the healers something really important to do. Robert Miller says, no defense for those group wipe mechanics. I like the one-shot mechanics that the tank has to know to defend against. Yeah, Robert, I think it's a little bit different when it's the tank and it's like a heavy attack or something like that, where you're like, yeah, or it's like you got to dodge this attack or you die. I do feel like that's different. That's a mechanic for the tank. I still think in a lot of situations, I'm not saying all of them, and this is as someone who's fine with roll dodging whenever I need to, right? Like I love roll dodging. I think it's incredibly fun. I think a lot of the stuff shouldn't quite kill you. I think it should make things harder. I think it should make things like an oh shit moment where the healer's got to turn and focus you, put a debuff on you, something like that. But I do think that in general, it would make tanking a lot easier, especially for new players. Because that's who it really matters for. If you could have a healer pocket your tank who was new and then not just die, that would feel 1,000 times better for that tank, right? And the group could progress, and the healer that is experienced or even new, but they feel like they're doing a good job because they've helped the group. And I tend to think that the one-shot mechanics, put them down at 90% health, put them down at 20% health 10% health. Put them down to 20% health with a debuff. Maybe other damage that goes on, if they don't get healed quickly, they are going to die. But something like that, I think, would make it. Guys, I mean, I hope ESO listens. I mean, we should just send this to them, right? Like, these are just great ideas that I think 99% of people would agree with. And the problem is, and the issue is, that I think that most people, I don't think that the folks over at ESO they're new, and a lot of them haven't had a chance to play the game that much to know it this well, and it's hard to design a game when you don't have that experience with it. You haven't been able to play it that much. Cakeman says from Depths of Malatar gets a lot of hate for some reason, but I feel like that's one of the best designed dungeons. I think it's a little too hard for a lot of people, Voss Boss, and then if you have high enough DPS, everything's trivial. But I think typically it would be a little too hard for a lot of people, and I think they could scale the difficulty a little bit better, for sure. Around DSR is when I stopped even understanding mechanics when doing normal gear runs and having to watch a guide to even know how to do vet. Yeah, because like you just everything dies so quick, I assume is what you mean, Nino. Yeah, normal trials teach you basically nothing, and they're not even helpful for learning, which is again that gap in difficulty where like normal trials like nothing matters and you could just do whatever and it doesn't teach you anything. So how do you get into vet trials? And you go into a vet trial and you just get absolutely wrecked and it doesn't feel good. Cleanse is an entire mechanic that goes virtually unused. I agree they should use it more, but I think the devs designed too many negative effects as a crutch of a fight. Okay, might be fair. I think I'd have to hear more about that Voss Boss, but I could possibly agree. As a tank main, I will say tanking in ESO does not feel good in most fights. They are prone to spamming you with small hits and just draining you rather than giving you big hits that require your mitigation. Well, and most things are you either block and you're fine, or you don't block and you're dead. Vossboss says so. If you can just delete a 70k dot from a design point of view, why even include it? Maybe if they were more than one, you'd have to pick and choose which to cleanse. Vossboss, there's a lot of things you can do, man, though. Like that debuff they have to cleanse from you, what if it reduced your damage by 50%? That changes things, right? There's plenty of things that could have you do. What if you wasn't cleansed within a certain time period, you had to go do an extra mech? There's a thousand things you could do that cleanse would be important for, man. It feels like a war of attrition most times rather than other games where it feels like I'm tanking their biggest moves. Steve says, you're trying to make too much sense, and that's dangerous. Steve, I think you're right, man. B says, CTB says, I personally think ZOS doesn't do remotely enough wipe/DPS check mechanics. Okay. Yeah, as long as it's a mechanic and as long as it's designed well, I'm totally fine with it. I mean, I think that we really like trials with those type of mechanics. I mean, I think a lot of us really like Cloud Rest and it has that sort of thing. What are some other good ones? The Warrior back in the day, right? Like it's really cool. Even on hard mode a year or two ago, maybe 2 years now, you know, if you didn't have enough DPS on the Warrior hard mode, you would wipe because it would be a soft wipe because all the ads would come alive, but it would still be kind of a wipe. I don't know how tanks see the heavy attacks with so much bad camera and particles. I salute you. We appreciate it, Aeon. I think DSR has a lot of good feedback. If you don't bash a twins teleport, you know exactly what went wrong. When we wipe in the final VOC boss, it's more like finding a straw that broke the camel's back. 100% Cake Man. Franny says for the dot, which would kill after X seconds, if it remains active, but if it is not cleansable, I agree with you then. I did not know. Sorry, my English is kind of a joke at the beginning. Oh, no worries, Franny. No worries. I'm sorry I didn't. Even with perfect English, sometimes I don't understand stuff, so it's probably not you. And then Nino says, yeah, as a tank. What up, Zombie? As a tank, you virtually don't have to interact with most of the bosses or mechanics other than walking from here to there and occasionally dodging. Okay, see, this is why you're the big brain YouTuber and I'm the two-head in the peanut gallery. Oh, it's all good, Voss Boss. I mean, dude, that's what I was talking about earlier. Like whenever it's always really good to train yourself. And this is probably just like a life thing, man. When you're doing creative things, try not to get caught in the idea that there's only one way to do something, because if you think that, it's just a lack of imagination. And yeah, that's all there is to it. Just you know, think outside the box, get from point A to point B. It doesn't necessarily always matter if you go in a straight line or how you go. Cakeman says, I think those big clear wipe mechanics are cool because it makes them satisfying to clear. Death by 1,000 cuts just feels bad. I would actually say, Cakeman, Death by 1,000 cuts, for those who don't know, that's the channeled heavy attack from the Warrior. And I actually think it's really cool because if you fail that or if you drop, you can roll dodge in the middle of it if you time it correctly and recover. And I think that is great. And I think there should be more mechanics like that where the channeled heavy doesn't just kill you if you miss the heavy, right? Because if you miss the block on a normal heavy, you're dead. But if you miss one of the blocks or you drop low you on stand, but you have the free roll dodge CP, you could roll dodge and avoid. Does it move the boss? Yes. Does that cause DPS loss? Yes. So there is a cost to it. So you don't want to do it, but it's a soft thing. Oh, you didn't mean the mechanic. Okay. All right, you're talking about something else, man. You said 1,000 cuts, like whispers in the wind. What am I supposed to do? Okay, we've been reading chat for a second. Let me look back at some of my notes. Guys, these notes that I have, I actually made these and I was kind of two minds. So I made these notes because I was actually I started to do the review, the video released this morning, reviewing the new trial and kind of talking about it. And then I was like, I should try to provide feedback. And then as I started to try to provide feedback, it was pretty negative. And I don't want to be negative. I don't want to, And so I was like, well, what if I did a thing where it was like, hey, how to do this better? And then I started going through and writing all this stuff. And I was like, this is a waste of time. They're not going to listen. They haven't for so long. For anybody who's new, guys, I might sound jaded, but they have somebody back me up in chat. ZOS has a long storied history of ignoring really good player feedback, no matter what happens. Hey, Guppysaurus, I did. I got a high and tight. I guess they knew I was in the military and they just couldn't help give me a high and tight. Yeah, figures of speech in English has its quirks. In ESO, I never have to interact with my raid group as a tank. Yeah, that can be a problem. In WoW and Final Fantasy XIV as a tank, I have a few team-wide mitigation cooldowns that on certain big hits, I'm required to stack with my raid group and buff them to make sure they live through the hits. Yeah, it's a great point, Nino. Again, Nino, that's a great point, Nino, and I think that also points to what's the difference between a dungeon and a trial versus solo content. We have to work together. And so, yeah, absolutely. Stuff like that is cool. Been here since beta. Yeah. ZOS doesn't care about player feedback. Yeah. Thanks for the backup on that. Crown crates are greater than quality of life, Aeon says. Yeah. I've had fun with VOC, but it definitely doesn't feel like as cool as a lot of the previous mechs. It's like all the fights were a bit basic. I like the gimmicks. Yeah. Hey, Merpins, sorry if I'm saying that right. I got permabanned in the official forums for feedback a couple of years ago. Sorry, after 8 or so years without any bans. Yeah, the ZOS is very much like if you give him feedback, man, it's like giving a kid a medicine. It's got to be sugar coated. Dipped in chocolate. Otherwise, they don't like it. And it's unfortunate because if you don't listen to player feedback, your game's not going to be as good. And again, I've used myself as an example of this, guys. Actually, I probably couldn't pull it up. It's probably buried in I've gotten a lot of comments, guys. I haven't even been able to respond to all of them, the comments I've gotten recently, which is a high quality problem. But I got a comment. You know what? It was on my healer. It was on my Nightblade healer video.
Everyone, it's Nightheart.
Maybe we can pull it up. Let me see. Let me see if it's just someone left a comment and they were like Nightblade healer, and they were like, why the fuck did you not include the other Morph Swallow Soul? What is it? Siphoning? No, the other Morph Swallow Soul. And the reason is because it's basically like radiating regen, but it's a little bit better. You do have to hit a target, but it's basically like radiating funnel health. Thank you, Voss Boss. And they were rude, and they were like, why didn't you include this? And they were kind of mean about it. They were right. And you know what I said to them? You're absolutely right. Thank you for the feedback. And I will include that and make sure to point it out to people in the future. I should have included it. Now, do I always cut out stuff from all of my, guides because I never can cover everything I want to say? Yeah. And sometimes I omit the wrong things. I'm never happy with what I omit for time. I don't know where that line should ever be drawn, and I'm the most critical of myself. But that particular thing, I just missed it. And it was delivered rudely. I don't care. They helped me provide better information to you guys, which is so crucial for what I do. And for ZOS, making a good game is everything that they should do. Just like for me, making content is really everything that I do. Everything else is like, adding on to that. Making good content that is high quality and is correct is like one of the most important things. And, you know, yeah, that's all there is to it. I don't care. I don't care how it's delivered, when I got feedback on my audio a couple of years ago, which, they said you sound like you're in a trash can or something. And again, it was mean. They said mean things. It's okay. It's okay. And if I this lowly creator who doesn't make it, doesn't even make enough to like make a living doing this full time, if I can accept feedback like that, why can't they? This $1 billion company, they sold for what, $5 billion? I mean, come on. Okay. Yeah. Nino's like, yeah, siphoning is better than radiating. And Merpens is like, yeah. I'm sorry, guys. And honestly, like at some point in some time, did I know that? I think so. I undervalue radiating as well. So that's also a thing. So like all those kind of skills, I tend to undervalue. That's on me. Let me see. Is there anything that we missed up here? Zombie Jesus said, not just ZOS. It is an MMO thing because they make the content so far in advance. They don't have time to revamp or fix it. Yeah, well, I think also Zombie, like a lot of MMOs also don't really, well, a lot of games in general, they're not in touch with their player base too. And a lot of them think that it's a really great thing that they're making content so far in advance. And it's like, it just means that you move at a glacial pace to respond to any feedback. Voss Boss says, in quotes, we appreciate your feedback so long as you glaze the hell out of us, and we might get bored and stop reading before we get to the critique portion. Yeah, 100%. Okay. Let me check my notes here because we're not moving very fast, but that's okay. Yeah, a basic one here. This is kind of going back to the 101. Mechanics should be telegraphed, and they should be easy to see and figure out. Historically, ZOS has actually done quite well at this with many mechanics. The new trial, they forgot this, and I think it's just new people that maybe don't know these things. But like, the thing is, I don't blame the new people, and I don't blame the people who actually did it. I blame their boss, because their boss is, a lot of those people at the top level have been there for a decade or more, and they know better. They should know better, and they should be going, hey, don't forget this. Just like they don't let them forget the preview mechanics, right? They do a good job with that almost ubiquitously, which they should never not happen. They should also be there to be like, hey, also don't forget these other things, and help them out. And I think not doing that is really a disservice to those people. Robert says, my wife loves Nightblade Healer. Khajiit Nightblade Healer is doable. Yeah, Guppysaurus. Khajiit Nightblade Healer is definitely doable. What is this? Zombie says, oh, you're scared to try a Nightblade Healer? No, they're great. They're good. Give it a shot, Guppy. They're good. You've seen me, right? You know that I Nightblade heal hard mode Dreadcell Reef, and in the past I've done Sunspire like every week, multiple times a week. It's no big deal. Let me see here. YouTube even puts ads on streams. I have noticed since April 1st. Now I get ads on my phone again. Oh yeah. Hey man, gotta pay them bills. I hope it's not too annoying. Robert says, I really want to make a cracked solo Nightblade build with multi-classing and pumping siphoning as... Oh no. More comments came in. It scrolled me up as high as possible. Okay. Nino says the amount of gatekeeping info there is in this game is insane, and half of it I can't even tell you guys because that would ban me for bug abusing, even though it's been in the game for 10 years. Yeah, Nino. That's funny. I actually mentioned something in a video I recorded today that was a bug. And I was like, ZOS isn't going to watch this. Whatever. Ban me. I don't think they will. I'm not abusing it. I just know about it and I mentioned it. So actually I never abuse it because it's on a thing that I never use. Merpin says racial choice doesn't matter much. So yeah, because it matters the most for DPS, and it's at max about 5% of your DPS, which might be less now actually. With the DPS going higher, it should get lower over time. Zombie Jesus says icebergs are the way MMOs are made. Sad to say. Yeah. Oh no, Nino, don't say that. Guppysaurus is going to fight you. Oh my god. Oh, thank you so much. There we I'm sorry, did you Sarah? Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna let that. Oh my gosh. Oh, wait. Not Khajiit or Nightblade? I don't know. You guys can argue about it. The Shadow is also better than the Ritual. Oh, interesting. Okay. I missed the Wildstar raids. They were all about telegraph moves, and if you got hit, it was deadly. Nino, I think I need to know more about Shadow being better than Ritual, but maybe not. Maybe not right now. I need to look into that more though, because I've been recommending the Ritual or the Thief. Nightblade healing IMO is even more fun than Warden or Plar. Okay. Knight, you're literally 17% better at the game than I. I'm just a dumb tank. Uh, yeah, you Nightblade heal. Yeah, exactly. A Nightblade DSR Twin Sprog. Hey, man. Hey, Cake Man. Sometimes the Twin Sprog happens, man. I wasn't playing very well last night, if I'm being honest. Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed in myself. I don't play healers, so only baseline knowledge. Yeah, get the osmosis from the wife. Hey, that's good. It's good, Merpens. Still confused why they're doing subclassing. Scribing is super cool. Zombie, I think subclassing is really cool, man. I actually really like it. I just wish they would have had any forethought and plans for balancing. That's all. That's all I wanted. Nino says TLDR on healers, Khajiit plus Shadow is better than Nightblade and Plar, and Argonian plus Ritual is better on Crow and Warden. Okay. Cool. Duly noted. I should make a mental note of that. Okay. So we talked about one-shot mechanics. We talked about mechanics being telegraphed. DPS checks. So I think we talked about, I think most of us I like the idea of DPS checks in general. I think they're a great idea, although I do think they represent, like, there are design challenges. You can make really bad DPS checks. As I mentioned earlier, one of the ways that DPS checks can be fun is, like, are people roughly doing mechanics? And if you aren't roughly doing mechanics and people die and then you have to res them, then your DPS is too low. I think that's one example of a cool way to do DPS checks. There are plenty of viable and optional ways. I think in some of the hard modes, I don't know. Like, I think it would be cool, and I think most people would be on board if you just had to do mechanics to get through them, and that if you didn't do mechanics, maybe it was crazy and wild, and you just permanently, like, it was a 25-minute pull, 30-minute pull or something, but you could recover. I think most people would be okay with that if groups that were more skilled could just do it quicker and better. Would anybody really? I don't know if that would ruin anybody's fun. So that's just another idea of how to do that. I also think having portal mechanics where there are DPS checks specifically for the portal, again, makes it where you send your 3 highest parsers, your 3 most skilled players, they can go in, they got to stay alive. They also have to do a bunch of damage. And I think that's another great way to have a DPS check where, you could have 3 experienced players with the rest of the group being total noobs. And yeah, everybody got carried a little bit, but that's okay. Nobody really cares about a soft carry like that. We really don't. I know basically no one who cares that I could. Yeah, I can't think of anybody who's really ever cared because you feel like a hero. You feel great if you're the person who can go in and do the big numbers. And so it works out for everybody. You know what I mean? And it also gives the people that are less skilled and do less damage something to aspire to. So my 2 pennies there. All right, I didn't finish all my thoughts on mechanics, but I do want to maybe move on a bit to difficulty, and we've talked about this some as we've gone along. Crit passives go burr, basically. Okay, cool. I kind of figured that's where you're going with that. Zombie Jesus says it would be nice if the death recount actually told you anything, and maybe suggested to not die to a mechanic. Holy crap, Zombie Jesus, man. That's an insane idea, dude. Actually getting feedback from the game, my dude. Wow. Man, I don't know. I think we need, do we need to ban Zombie for suggesting these very based ideas? No, it's a great idea, man. More, and people have add-ons and they use them, and it's so great when they're like, "No, this is what you died to. This is why you died." And there's add-ons for raid leads that we often use to, like, know what's going on, why someone died. Did they get any healing before they died? Did they just dot out what the situation was? So yeah. Nino says, being in a situation where you have to call, leave them dead and parse check we res after never feels good. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Nino, are you saying that that's what can happen with DPS checks, where if you res, you fail? That's a good point. That's actually something I really hadn't considered, so that's fair. I love how you can be. My favorite part of MMORPG PvE content is the specialization. I love how you can be an amazing tank but know nothing about healing that content. Yeah. Uh, uh, Zombie Jesus says, yeah, shocking. Yeah, I don't know how he's not banned already. Guffy says, death recap. The boss deals damage. Don't get damaged. Yeah, that's yep. There you go, boss. Yep. Nino, that's an interesting point. I don't mind that so much, but you do have a very valid point there. We might disagree a little bit on that. You might be right. But that's, yeah, duly noted. Okay, difficulty in trials. I want to talk a bit more about difficulty. We're mostly talking about trials. I said I'd get into multi. I think people keep popping in and saying we're not talking about multiclassing and dipping out. But that's okay. So I personally think that the primary difficulty for trials should come from the mechanics. I mean, it should be like a combination of things, but I do think a lot of it should come from the mechanics. You know, for example, if we talk about Sunspire, which is several of you guys' like favorite trial, right? Like on Loke, we have a situation where, which is the Ice Dragon, for those who don't know, we have a situation where we have to do a heal check. If the heal check fails, people die, which makes the rest of it harder. So that's pretty important. We also have situations where the DPS has to, they have a DPS check. They have to kill the ads fast enough. And there are multiple ways also. That's another thing that I really like is there are multiple ways that if you have a group who has low DPS, there are multiple ways to do the fight. And you can still get through it. You have to do more mechanics, so it makes it even harder in some ways, but it's not a pure DPS check. And I think that is also a situation where it's really cool where the fight changes depending on how much DPS you have. But what we don't want, and what we often have in ESO, is that if your DPS is high enough, it trivializes everything. And I don't think that that is a good mechanic. I would also say, and I think we can all agree on this, is that health gates, where you get to 80% and then the boss does a mechanic, you can't do any damage, and it just sits there. Can we not all agree that those are generally just really bad? They feel pretty friggin' horrible. And if it happens on normal or when you're just way above the DPS they expected, it just feels absolutely garbage to me. I think we all have to be on the same page on this, but you guys tell me if you disagree. Maybe we could have a conversation about it. But I think that that is also a situation where if too many people are dead, then what can happen is that you don't have enough DPS to kill all the Storm Atros on Loke, for example. Excuse me, I just need to do something real quick, and then we'll hop back to it. Let me see. Cool. So I think that's one example of where you have a lot of people. Not everybody has to do every mechanic. Some people have to get in the tombs. Not everybody does. Everybody needs to move around the group. There are a lot of variables on the DPS on how you do the fights, but you do need some minimum amount of DPS. The main problem is when too many people die, then you don't have a DPS. You don't have enough DPS to clear mechanics. And it's also like a soft wipe because more ads spawn, which makes it harder on the off tank. And this is the same on Yolnahkriin as well. And then the off tank gets overwhelmed and then everybody dies. And that's kind of how it works. I think there's some memeing, some jokes going on. Merpin says, Zoss implemented suggestions when you die. Just get good, scrub. Nino says, I have cleared every single trifecta dungeon and trial aside from the last batch of them. In IMO, 90% of veteran hard mode content feels like a straight slog. Most mechanics are tedious and not fun. Okay. Zombie Jesus said, yeah, shield phases suck. Scripted immune phases are, in fact, garbo. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Nino says a hard disagree there. Okay. Tell us more, Nino, because I think most people really, really don't enjoy them and don't think they're super fun. Robert Miller says, I think the DPS is king concept is an accidental result of them bolting on some of these systems that created lots of power creep and not updating the content to match. Robert, I agree. Although it's been in the game so long that it's kind of a feature at this point, and they kind of, I don't know, they haven't done anything about it. But it's also ZOS, so if you want to parse a guard, I'd go to Gartwood. Go to Grotwood. I mean, yeah. Uh, they also didn't initially design these encounters to be mechanic heavy, so the DPS creep just made old content easy. I think some of the older content was more mechanics heavy when the DPS was lower too. If you just get high DPS, then the mechanics matter less because you don't even see them or you DPS through it. It doesn't matter. So I don't know. I don't know if I 100% agree with you, Robert. I think it's just a function of DPS having gone up, which I'm sure we agree on that in general. Zombie Jesus says best phasing is in any. Oh my gosh. Best phasing in any MMO trial or dungeon is when the room changes. Either floor breaks, need to run to a portal or door, or fire moves and covers part of the room. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's I think those are great features. Nino says if you want to make the boss go immune and cast a big raid wide, while everyone has to go and do a mechanic in order to stop the cast, that feels good. IMO. Yeah, that's fair, Nino. Nino, I think like what is that dungeon where you get several good sets from? Oh my gosh, with the dragons and it's purple. Somebody help me out here. You get Zen's Redress from there. Do you also get? I think you get several. Lair Marsalok. Yeah, thank you. Jeez. Thank you, St. John. Lair Marsalok. Yeah, Lair Marsalok feels pretty bad for that's what I'm talking about. Are we talking about the same thing, Nino? Where like you don't even really nothing really happens. You're just kind of standing there waiting for things to become unimmune again. In all of those fights, or most of them at least. They also didn't initially design these encounters to be mechanically heavy, so the DPS. Oh, okay, sorry, we already read that. Let me see. Yeah, I think we kind of agree. It sounds like Volsball says to Nino, scripted immune phases that occur at set HP thresholds. I don't mind shield phases necessarily or mechanic pushes. Yeah. Cake Man says just go HP based mechs like Rockro, Flesh Atro spawns. Yeah, I think a lot of us would agree that that is better. Yeah, there was a cool fight in WoW back in I think the I don't know what WOD is. I forget what the expansions are called. Zombie that had trains go through the room and you need to avoid the trains. Okay, yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of things like that, and it sounds interestingly enough like we agree. I think it's actually kind of a wonder because we agree on like 90% of this stuff. Do we not? Like, I think so much of this stuff we just absolutely agree on of like what's a good mechanic and what's not a good mechanic. Yeah, kind of, but better example of that is done of it that's done well would be in Locusty's hard mode in Sunspire, where everyone has to be in spots for the beam face when it comes back. Nino, I don't think anybody has a problem with that, and I don't think we would consider that really a health gate. It is a health gate. You're right. You're right. I guess it's a triggering of a mechanic is what I would describe it as. And it's more like the health gate. It's not just like no, you can't damage the boss now because health. There's a lot of fights where like nothing is nothing. I mean, technically, you could argue there's a mechanic. Maybe honestly, it's just implemented so poorly the mechanics that's the problem. So maybe it is a bit of semantics because I think we're kind of saying the same thing. But whenever you're just like, yeah, you can't do any damage to the boss now for no reason, and there's not really much to do. I think that's different than it pushing to a different phase of the fight where you have to do other things. I think that like Locusty's hard mode is great personally. So maybe a bit of that is semantics. Final boss layer, St. John says, final boss layer Marsalok on hard mode is a good mech, though. Yeah, that's fair. I like the curse mech where your players have to call out which curse is right. Zombie G says Wildstar had a raid that one player was marked with a bomb. They have to jump off the edge and pick a tile to break, and it can't be used anymore, making the floor smaller. Okay. Guys, I want to hard pivot now, if you guys don't mind. I want to hard pivot and talk about multi-classing more. We we didn't get to very much of it, but I would like to talk about it. Let me see if I can get ESO up here. And I want to talk a bit about the balancing on the multi-classing, because we talked about this a little bit earlier in the week, but I had a little bit more I wanted to say. So I would say, first off, one of the big issues for me is that we can actually see, and this is a little bit hard for people that maybe haven't kept up with it, but with all of the changes that have come through, ZOS was not planning on this. They have not been planning for this for 2 years. And you can tell a big part of the problem is that they weren't like, a lot of this wasn't planned. And so one of the biggest issues, I'm having issues with my game displaying correctly. I don't know what's going on. One of the biggest issues I personally think is really that the skill lines. Arcanist skill lines are one tank skill line, one healer skill line, one DPS skill line. And one of the big problems is, like, for everybody, and I covered this in a video, obviously, is that if you had a class and a spec that you liked before, that is no longer viable. To me, telling all of the players in your game that whatever you were doing before is no longer viable is a really bad idea. I mean, again, if you had a lot of confidence that the thing you were going to do was going to be so much better and whatever, I could see there being a situation where it was fine and you could go for it. ZOS is not in that situation. They don't really have the trust of the community to do something like that, but they did it anyways. So, yeah. Okay, cool. Nino say, yeah, some of the recent fights, the boss goes immune for 30 seconds and you just stand there and there's nothing to do. Yeah, and it's pretty lame. Yeah, exactly. Robert Miller says multi-classing is scary. I think multi-classing is great, man. It might be a little scary, but I think it's great. Okay, popped in for the multi-classing. Good. The best part about multi-classing IMO is now that we can see how blatantly unbalanced the skill lines are. Hey, Nino, one of the things that's really frustrating for me is that they've known for a long time, and they just don't care enough to fix it, or haven't cared enough to fix it, and they still don't care enough to fix it, which is a little bit unfortunate because, yeah, they are really unbalanced. Whenever, like, even for healing, healing, tanking, whatever, the Arcanist skill line is just so much better than every other skill line out there by, like, degree. And we knew this, but there's also other ones that aren't, the most. I honestly thought that they hadn't sold enough of the expansion for Arcanist, and they were just trying to sell more. But at this point, haven't they sold all the ones they're going to sell? Like, I don't know what they're doing. But there's so many skill lines, and we can just, like, look at this. We can pick a spec. You guys tell me, actually, we'll do a little poll because I like the polls. Let me do one real quick. Let me see. Which spec do you want to talk about? All right. So we're going to say tank, healer, or DPS. All right. And we're not going to go super in depth, guys. But which one? I'm going to let you guys choose which option we're going to talk about because it honestly doesn't matter. I can make the point with any of them, and I'm just curious what you guys want to hear about. I would imagine it'll be DPS, but I just want to. Hey, Gantry. Bro, you could crush your head like a peanut. That was just a funny comment. Is this? Oh, sorry, I can't be tabbed out of the game. I'm sorry. If I tab out of ESO, my audio goes bad. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. Sorry, guys. Reads like a ask for forgiveness rather than permission kind of deal. Yeah. And, I don't mind some of that, boss. It just has to be well executed. And, of course, it's not really going to be. There needs to be either 20% damage buff to OG classes when all three skill lines are chosen, or a 15 to 20% nerf to non-core classes. So Robert here is pointing out something that I think a lot of people have suggested something similar towards, which is give everybody a buff if they stay on their same basic class and don't multi-class. I think that is a very obvious and very straightforward thing that you could do. And maybe it could work. Sure. I think that what they would have to do for that is they would have to somehow come up with a unique buff maybe it was something that would apply to your character and always be active, kind of like a Mundus or like a just some sort of permanent buff whenever it checked to see what skill lines you had. And if you had two of the same class, it gave you one version of the buff. If you had all three of the same class, it gave you a bigger buff. They would have to code that, and that would probably be more work than they could, like, that would just be more work. And so I think that's why they're not doing it. And there would also probably be issues with it. And it's probably a bit more difficult to code than I think most people probably give it credit for. Maybe there's some other buffs like it, in which case they could maybe copy and paste the code a bit and then modify it. And then that could also have problems if they did that. But I'm not really sure. And I'm not sure how everything's coded, so I can't say for sure. But I imagine it would probably be a little bit more difficult than people think. And if they were going to spend the time to do that, there's a lot of other things they could otherwise do also. Not saying it's a bad idea. It's definitely the first and most obvious idea that hopefully they thought about. There are other things that, I think the real thing that, well, there's several different ways they could do it. Let me see. Let me catch up on chat real quick. 70% of skills need rework and move to a different skill line. That makes more sense. I think Nino has a very, very good point here. I think that ultimately that's what they would do. I think Nino, you probably know this, people are kind of suggesting this as like a stopgap measure. Like, hey, in the meantime, while stuff's broken, just do this. And then Gentry says, isn't it a bit of a lazy release? Most of the code and system was already there. Maybe I'm wrong. Gentry, yeah, you are correct. Most of the releases are not lazy releases. That implies that there aren't people working hard. There's just incompetence at the top. I don't think it's that there's a bunch of lazy people at ZOS. I just think there's so much incompetence at the top. And I also think that they can't scale up to be able to do larger tasks because they don't know how to manage more people or train them. Yeah. I think we have years and years of data that would suggest that's true. I could be wrong, but I think we have years and years of data that would strongly suggest that. Daedric says, honestly, if they didn't Nightblade flank passive if they didn't buff Nightblade flank passive through the wazoo and kept Gravelord Sacrifice unique to Crow, who didn't use it anyways, the damage increase wouldn't be nearly as crazy. Well, there you go, Daedric. That's interesting. Let me see here. I think, okay, cool. Throwing Assassination and Herald of the Tomb are so brokenly OP. Yep. In PvP, they could use Battle Spirit. Yeah, I think a million people have also suggested that. They could add it to PvE and adjust it, possibly. Robert, I think you're right. I also wonder if Battle Spirit doesn't cause, if there's not complications with the code or whatever, because they seem to not do that kind of thing. Or Robert, I say that, it could just be a very obvious thing that they're just not implementing or listening to us and they never thought of themselves. That's honestly probably more likely, but try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Sork needs some work. Cakeman says, why do people only join this stream on YouTube? I want to talk in chat, but I also want to earn fake Twitch points. Yeah, hey, man, there's a handful of people in Twitch. Hey, man, there's 6. That's a ton. Cakeman, I think it's just because I've been doing YouTube, and I used to only stream on YouTube because you couldn't dual stream. So I think everybody's learned to come in on YouTube, man. But I don't know. We're growing the Twitch audience there. Gentry is over there. Nino says, I'm mostly a PvP person, and a big thing I've noticed is that with multiclassing Max Orc as a dead class that no one will play, you could easily fix this by just moving the shield to Dark Magic. Okay. If you move the shield to Dark Magic, it would also mess up the tanking situation for them, which would be a shame for PvE, Nino. But, yeah. What are fake Twitch points good for? I have no idea, Guppy. Instead of being, yeah. All right, there you go. All right. Yeah, so let's talk about this a little bit more. We kind of got a little bit off track there. So first off, like, how would you balance these, right? We kind of talked about this earlier in the week. One way to balance this, right? Because you're basically saying, hey, you can pick any 3 skill lines you want. What do you want to do? Well, one way is to have a firm tanking, firm healing, and firm DPS skill line. The situation with that is, again, that everybody is going to pick the 3 best PV, DPS skill lines. So then you need to balance each one of the skill lines with each other. And honestly, that would be one way that would work really well. Now, a side effect of that is, again, you never want to play simply the base class. And if you want to just say, YOLO, we're deleting the old classes, they don't matter anymore, and we're moving forward, I don't think that is, it's going to piss people off, but like, I don't think it's the worst decision in the world. Apologize, say sorry, we just think this is the best thing for the game. Also have a lot of trust from your community, which ZOS doesn't have. I think that could be one way. Fine. They're already deleting the classes anyways, so that would just be, it would be an improvement, I would say. A great improvement, if nothing else. Stand with a Plan says, I bet a fix would be easier than we expect. The fact that every build run set bonuses, so they could just do a skill line 2-piece or 3-piece bonus. Yeah, that would also work for sure. Show me on screen celebration. Oh no, dude, I don't have it set up, man. This is why nobody tunes into Twitch, man. Thank you so much for the bits, man. But I don't have it set up. Oh. Well, I would delete mine for the game, Nino says. Dude, I'm sorry, man. Hey, I promise next week I will get it set up. I'm sorry. Yeah, I need to set up the Twitch stuff so that, stuff pops up on the screen, but it takes work, and I've been trying to focus on doing the other stuff because, but I'll get to it this week. All right. Yeah, so I think that is one of the big problems. Another way they could do it is if each skill line had some healing, some tanking, and some DPS. And so then it was a combination of which 3 you chose. I think that could make for some more interesting situations, but that would also be another way they could balance it. What they did was just threw this out there and said, we'll balance it later. That's basically what they said. I think Daedric has a really good point that if they tone down some of these passives from the Crow skill line so that choosing Gravelord, was it 20%, 25%? Increased damage just from choosing for dots, just from choosing the skill line, that would do a lot. I think another. Oh, thanks. Just need to replace the dino heads with bunny heads. Yeah, for sure, man. That would be awesome. Should do that. I would say another thing is that Fate Carver is a huge problem. Okay, I think we all know this. So conceptually, we have a skill that lasts, you hit a button and it lasts 4.5 seconds. The next longest skill, there might be a beam actually. How long does the Templar beam last? Besides maybe the Templar beam, the next longest skill cast is 1.8 seconds. That means that Exhaustive Fate Carver, or Fate Carver in general, is 2.5 times as long as the next longest skill. That makes the build using Fate Carver so much easier. Okay, so we've established it's way easier. Not just kind of easier, it's way easier. Okay, well, at least it doesn't do the most damage, right? Oh, wait. No, this actually is one of the biggest portions of your damage on any build. And on an Arcanist build before the patch, it was like 50% of your damage, right? Something, am I right? I'm right on that, right? I'm going off memory. Maybe it's something else really large. Most other abilities are like 10% on the high end. Maybe a little bit more, probably a little bit less. Why am I being shadow banned? Nope, not today. You're not, man. Is the comments not coming up? Let me check. Hold on. Nope, not today. I think it switched itself to, sometimes it remembers, man. So it was like top chat, not every piece of chat. And I'm sorry, man. But drop it again, whatever your comment was. Yeah, I don't know. And YouTube also sometimes, decides it doesn't want to show comments. Also, we're going to end this poll and see what happened. In this poll, we got 42% tanks. Oh, 38% DPS. Okay, cool. So we'll talk about tanks. We need to get over there. I'm talking about DPS now. I'm sorry. Um, let me just check chat real quick. Make sure we got everything. Never touching 20 to 25, 30 other classes because they were underperforming. Yeah. I like mixing idea of best ones I've heard to prevent the insanely broken builds. Yeah. But Crow needs those passes because their damage is horrible. Yeah. Crow's not a real class. Well, now it's like none of the base classes matter anymore anyway, Zombie. So now it would be fine because you're not going to play a base Crow anyways. Yeah, them getting just a percent boost to damage was a pretty lazy way of doing it, to be totally honest with you. It was a pretty basic, and I mean that in the insulting slang way. Not hard, I don't mean to be too harsh, but it's somewhat insulting way of like it is kind of basic. Like to be like, oh, we'll just add X percent damage to fix the fact that the class isn't otherwise balanced. Yeah, so all right, back on topic. Exhausting Fate Carver. We've already established it's one of the easiest skills. It also does the most damage of everybody else, right? Like it does like many times more damage than any other skill. It does the same amount of damage as like a heavy attack on a heavy attack build. But again, it lasts 2.5 times as long every time you hit a button. Absolutely crazy, absolutely insane. Well, at least it's not AoE, guys. At least it's not a beam that goes for 22 meters, right? Like, because that would be crazy. At least it's not that, right? Oh, it is? Oh, shit, it is. Oh, God. Oh, okay. So it goes for 22 meters. It's 3 meters wide, so you can hit everybody. And now they capped it at 6 targets. When was the last time you needed to hit more than 6 targets at the same time? Ever? Okay, so it does the most damage. It's the easiest to use, and it's a ridiculous AoE. This skill is a problem. Well, at least there's something else somewhat comparable to it, right? No, there's not. And if you're playing a Nightblade and you're trying to use something like, something like Veiled Strike here, if you're using Surprise Attack or Concealed Weapon, this is a single target ability. And if you compare like a Nightblade's original rotation, where you've also got to work in Grim Focus or, a bow proc of some sort, and then you switch during execute to have a different rotation because now you got to use your Assassin's Blade, like, how do you even compare these two things? This is a problem. And I don't think that Fate Carver should be nerfed. I think everything else should be buffed. That's what I think. I think that's what needs to happen to balance this out. And also, I think it's the only way you can do it without pissing everybody off. I think that the rest of the builds need to be buffed so that Fate Carver has been a problem since they introduced it. And they knew it. This is how they sold Arcanist, right? Everybody had to buy an Arcanist. Everybody had to get in that patch because it was, and the thing for me is like, it doesn't need to be a little bit better. Like a little bit better is fine. That's fine. Doing it where it's just ridiculously better than everything else is frankly a bit insulting and a bit frustrating. I like the concept of the Necro, but I agree it needs reworked. Fate Carver should be balanced, like heavy attack builds. Viable, not optimal. Are your lights on? Is there an issue with the green screen peeking through there, Guppy? Is that what you're telling me? They are. But I'm by a window, so if it's cloudy out today. I could probably turn on a light if we need to, if the green screen's peeking through. Arc Beam does shit high DPS and AoE considering a dot. Yeah. And Beam is ranged. Yeah, it's ranged, exactly. All the DLC classes are lazy. They're just stacked with buffs and percent modifiers. Fair. Zombie Jesus says, I'm not playing a Crow because I am uninterested, uninstalling ESO. Okay. The game is easy right now, and with this power spike, it will be way worse. I do think that's a really big problem, Zombie, and I don't think they care if we quit, to be totally honest with you. It is a really big problem. Arc Beam is worse than all the heavy attack builds that you barely need to click to play. Yeah. ZOS employees deserve to be fired and rejected in the unemployment line. Nope, not today. I would disagree. I think that the problem lies at the top. I think that's the big problem. Maybe you don't mean everybody, but I do think there needs to be a management change. Arc beam should just be deleted. Problem solved. Yeah. Well, they gave it to us, so now everybody's going to be pissed off if it goes away. Target caps don't belong in ESO. Yep, I agree. All hail the beam. So yeah, that's a problem. So how do you even balance this, right? Because like if you make from a deep, I know that we voted for tanks, guys, but I got started on DPS and I got distracted. So let me just finish this thought, and we'll move over to tanks. One of the things with DPS is that if this beam didn't quite do as much damage as single target attacks or like rotations that were much more complicated, that would be totally fine. Everybody who wasn't a super sweaty player could bring the beam. Everybody who was in a group and had a non-super sweaty player come in would be totally fine with them using the beam. It works great as long as it didn't do the most DPS. In most fights, they actually end up being single target fights because the thing that is a limiting factor is how quickly the boss dies. And typically there's only one boss. That's changing a bit to make beam even better. But many fights are like that. And so there would be a lot of situations where it would be totally fine for all the beginners or the less experienced or the less sweaty, whatever. It could be very experienced players to bring the beam build, and everybody would be happy. If I bring my Nightblade with my 11 button super complex rotation that is all single target, I just want to be able to do way more damage. Not way more. And when I say actually way more, but when I say way more, I mean like 10K. It's not that much way more. It's not even 10%. There just needs to be a reward for playing, and there should be, for good game design, there should be a reward for playing the more difficult class. If I am doing the more difficult thing, I should be getting some sort of reward for that. And DOS just doesn't do that and doesn't care about it. And the thing is, with a lot of the stuff, they find, guys, this is weird, and I think a lot of people won't believe me, but they fine-tune certain things so well that I really think that all of this is intentional. I really do. I think, I know they do a bunch of stuff that's on accident and whatever. I think that the actual DPS numbers are incredibly intentional. Somebody back me up or tell me they disagree and tell me why. I would love to hear it. But I think that's pretty clear. I think they fine-tune some stuff. You're just like, wow, you just really want the Arcanist to be the easiest class, the best class, and to, do everything else on top of it. And I think it's a real problem. All hail the beam. Okay. The top two, nope, not today, says, I don't think that everybody at ZOS needs to be fired. Seems like you're for DEI. That's good. I assume you understand it. The beam takes 3 Crux, maybe make it cost 6 to 8 and raise the caps of Crux you can make so you can only cap it at 1/3 of the normal time. Okay. My first DPS was Relic 1 Nightblade. I couldn't break 40k. I made B mark level 154 gear and immediately got 80k. Yeah, dude, that's the problem. It's fine for it to be easy. It's just not fine for it to be all of those other things that we just walked through. And I think it's a real problem. And it would be, if they wanted to, they could design around this idea. So I just want to point out that we've come up with like 3 or 4 ways, at least 4, I think, of like how they could balance all this. Oh, no, it says DEI means didn't earn it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, man. I think we won't get into it here, but I'm going to disagree with you on a lot of stuff, I think, just so you know. Yeah. Actually, no, we'll take a moment to talk about this, and then we'll move on. So there's actually a case. They've done like social research on this. There's research that shows, I think it was in someplace north of, I think it was in Milwaukee. They had applicants, they made fake applications, and they sent them into various businesses. And what they found is that if you had a stereotypically like white guy name, you were more likely to get called back for a job, even if you had a felony on your record that you disclosed, than as if you were a African-American person who didn't have any issues and had a better application. Okay. And they made these, and they sent them out and they've tested this stuff. there are situations where people aren't given the opportunity because they're a woman, because they're a minority, because whatever reason. And the whole idea behind diversity, equity, inclusion is to make a level playing field. It's people don't get the job because they're black. They don't get a job because they're a woman. They get the job because they're qualified. They get an opportunity to get the job because of DEI, and that's what is actually is important. It's being able to make a somewhat level playing field. And you know what? In the U.S. right now, it's not good for anybody if you're on the bottom. It doesn't matter if you're a poor white kid, you don't get a lot of opportunities either. Is it worse if you're if you're from a minority community? The data says yes. Does that mean that poor white people don't struggle too? No. No. And does it? But the thing is, it's not about pointing towards why it's worse. Oh, well, it's bad for me too, or it's worse for them. The problem is the people on top, man. So, and are there people in the gaming industry that have done some cringe things that were, from minority groups? Sure. I mean, but look at AAA gaming. It's a bunch of rich white dudes. It's not in a good place, man. I don't think it's diversity. So, and if you check some other videos, you'll find I say other things that are like this. Zoss 40 chess move. Make ESO super easy with a power spike so players move to a new MMO they're making. I mean, yeah, I don't think they're 40. I know you're joking, Zombie. I think we all know Zoss isn't doing 40 chess. Thank you so much, Lyriel. I could also tell you, when we talk about some of this stuff with DEI, I have seen real examples of this where people who are really qualified don't get opportunities over people that are underqualified because it's like good old boys club. Arcanist was designed to be accessible. Maybe it was a little too accessible because an easy class in the hands of Sweats is asking for power creep. Voss Boss, I just think that they needed to tune their DPS down a little bit so that it wasn't way better than everything else. That's all. And even if they brought it out and it was like that, if they just would have toned it down so that it's a little bit under what everybody else does, then it'd be different. Scott says, hello, is there any easy tank sets to acquire? Is there any werewolf build videos you would recommend? Easy tank sets, Scott, just to answer your question real quick, Fortified Brass is a craftable set. And for your second set, it literally doesn't matter. Use anything. And then get the meta sets, man, because you can run them. You can run things on content on normal, and they're very easy to. Sorry, there's I think a salesperson at the door. One moment, guys, real quick. Sorry about that. Someone's harassing my wife at the door. I think she was worried for them that I was going to get up. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? I don't know. It's gone now. Yeah, my train of thought is totally gone. Sorry, guys. I had a situation here. Hello, is there... Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay. Fortified Brass, great set for tanking. The new set that's coming out, I think it's Overland set, is also going to be really good because it reduces the cost of block and increases the amount of damage you can block. So that's really good. Those two sets will work really well. Run trials or dungeons on normal to farm the gear and just put that on, man. If you spend time farming sets that are supposedly good for new tanks, there's not very many, and there's really almost none. The new set coming out is like one of the few, which is going to be you're gonna have the gear you need by the time that comes out. So don't even worry about it. Just do Fortified Brass on your body. You could do Druid's Braid for the other set. It really doesn't matter, honestly. Hunding's Rage, that would also... is it Rage? Hunting something. That would also be a good one. But you just want to get the meta sets because none of those sets that are supposed to be survivable for you do anything. If you go out and farm, like people will recommend Leeching Plate. It's good some places, kind of. It's good for Overland to kill things if you're on your tank build, but it's generally not good for a tank. It just doesn't do that much for you. In any kind of hard content, you want to learn how to play your class, and so the sets really aren't going to do anything for you there. So, yeah. Hopefully that answers your question, but yeah, just leapfrog, because if you go spend the time farming sets that are supposed to help you as a tank, you're basically just wasting your time, man. And so it's just like, you don't need to. Robert says, I'm a black Jamaican in IT with a white sounding name. I live that study. There you go, man. There you go. Yeah. 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 Not today. Nope, not today. I would encourage you, man. Um, here's what everybody should do, guys. Everybody, everybody. It doesn't matter what you think. Don't go look for things to support your own ideas. Go look for things that disagree with you. Okay? Go look for things that disagree with you. Yes, also know about your own ideas, why you think what you think, but go look for it and see if there's not see if you can't change your mind. If you go and look for things, if you're right, okay? If you're right and you go look for things to try to change your mind and you just can't find any, then guess what? What have you lost? Nothing. You now know why what you think is even more correct. Okay? What you'll almost always find is that it's more complicated than as simple as you might have thought it was or had been treating it. And if you do that, you'll learn. You'll continue to learn. And you might change your views because I used to be so confident about things that I know now I was completely wrong about. Okay. And so we always want to do this for ourselves. And you know, the other thing is we can disagree and still be friends. Okay. That's the other thing. Some things maybe not. You know, if somebody's giving a Nazi salute, we can't be friends. Just can't do it. Just can't do it. We're not going to be friends. But most things we can agree on and we can be okay with. You know what I mean? But with disagreeing. Cool. Let me see here. I'm so far behind on chat, guys. And you know what? We got to hop into live. We got 10 minutes till we got to hop over. So we're gonna have to. Not today. Yeah, Concord tanked, and so did Veilguard. You know, some games tanked because I mean, sure, maybe there's reasons, man, but I don't think it's DEI. You know, I know plenty of very talented, very intelligent gay people, and them having a rainbow flag is not what makes them good or bad at their job. I've worked with a lot of gay people that were incredibly good at their job. They were also a lot of better people than many of the straight people that I grew. I don't think the one thing has to do with the other, man. I think it's a coincidence, and it's kind of a bigoted thought to think that, quite honestly. And that's okay. That's okay. I mean, it's not good, but it's okay. Hopefully we all just learn, and we can, how many gay people do you know? How many black people do you know? How many Hispanic people do you know? You know, if you go out and meet other people, you might find people. If you look for a way, like something that you're going to disagree and be divisive with somebody, you'll always find it. If you look for enemies, you'll always find them. If you look for friends, in my experience, you'll also find them if you look hard enough. And they might look a lot different than what you think when you started out. So, cool. That's interesting. A zombie saying something. I'm not going to be able to catch up on all this, guys. I'm just not going to be able to. I'm kind of reading through all this. Nino. I don't know anything about those games. I don't care about them. If someone was trying to make a political or some other point through their game and they made a terrible game in the process, I guess that's on them. Yeah, I mean guess that's on them. I don't really know anything about those games, but I know for a fact that just because someone's gay doesn't mean they're going to make a worse game. You know, I don't know if someone is trying to make stupid points in a game. Sure, yeah, like maybe that makes it worse or whatever, but both things can be true, right? You can be like, yeah, these people made a sucky game, right? But also not be like, these people made a sucky game because they're gay. That's right. Like we can agree on that, hopefully, right? Like I don't think one thing has to do with the other. I served in the military with some people that weren't straight, and I can tell you that I would rather have them at my back than a lot of other, straight people. So they were really good at their job, and that's what matters, you know. So I mean, if we can agree on that, then maybe we don't have much of a disagreement. If we can't agree on that, then probably have a really big disagreement. I don't remember what's going on with his character. I know that I don't have enough skill points, and I also know that I'm spec'd into I got Fate Carver on here, so I just want to get my skill points back in case I need to remorph into anything here. I was probably doing some DPS stuff. Hopefully everything else is good. I'm going to confirm that. Hey, guys. Hey, appreciate it, Zombie. I'm going to kick you guys to an ad, which I haven't done at all today. Should have done some of those. And then what we're going to do is I'll be right back. I'm going to kick you to an ad. And then I'll be right back with getting in group for this VSS hard mode. I do need to grab some food, so I am going to scarf some food down real quick. I think. I actually don't know if that's true, but I'll be back. I got a bio either way. Let me probably... This is a Nani trial, so I'm already 8 minutes late. Yeah, let me pop over here. All right, I'll be right back, guys. Yo, I'm back. And Nani's like, where are you? Had had something I had to help with, guys. Sometimes real life comes first. Hey guys on YouTube, I'm gonna. Oh, something happened. The stream is showing an error. Did it stop playing? Well, guys, I'm going to end the stream. It should kick you over to the new stream, and we'll be right back. You might have to hit the refresh button there. Sorry about being gone for so long there. All right, cool. Thanks, Franny. All right, we'll be right back, YouTube.